Hi guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create white howlite. So I've just got some white Primo here, and obviously this has not been conditioned yet. I just take it straight off the block, and then I will start chopping it. And you want to chop it into fine pieces. And the nice thing about not conditioning it won't be soft, and so the pieces won't stick together easily, and they'll just chop into nice shapes. They'll keep those nice sharp points and won't just kind of smush together. So just continue chopping that. Okay, and that should do it. Now I'm going to bring over some gold leaf, and this is optional, it doesn't have to go in, but it adds a nice accent. So I'll just add that and kind of get that broken up amongst the pieces, like so. Okay, and I'm going to bring over a bag, because this just makes the whole process easier and a lot less mucky. So if you put this in the bag, and now while you're handling this, don't be squeezing it. When you're handling the pieces, especially when you're picking up a whole bunch at once, just try to be light with it so that the pieces don't end up sticking together, because you want to keep them all separate. Okay. Then I'm going to take some black embossing powder. Again, this is also optional. You really only need the black and brown paint to this. This just adds some inclusions and it can create a slightly better result, but it's not completely necessary. I'll mix that in. Okay, then I'm just going to close this, make sure to leave air, and then I'll just shake it around so that it's distributed before I put the paint in. Okay, there we go, so you can see how that looks in there. Then I'm going to grab some black acrylic paint, and I'm going to pop this in, and this is why I put it in the bag, because now it will stay nice and tidy, because it won't be on my hands or on my tile or anything like that. Then I've just got some burnt umber here, squeeze that in as well, and you do not need a lot. Then make sure to leave lots of air in the bag, it just makes shaking it all up much easier. And just shake it up like so. Okay, then I've just got a piece of paper here, and I'm just going to tip this out onto the paper. There we go. I'm just keeping them separate for the moment. Okay, I've got everything. There we go. Excuse me. Then I'll just, actually I can use a blade to just gently space this out. And this will just help the pieces dry sooner. Just leave them there and they should dry within 10 minutes at most. And then we can move on to the next step. Okay, and they're for the most part dry. So now I'm going to bring over a cabochon mold. Now if you wanted to use cutters and didn't want to use a cabochon mold, I would advise you to take all of this, squish it all together and square it up into a cane. Then you can cut slices, put them together, burnish that quickly, and then you can use cutters. But if you want to be using a cabochon mold, then generally I don't like using slices. I like to actually take the pieces as they are and insert them into the mold like so. And I'll probably need to put some more in a minute, so let me just pop these over here. And then grab a piece of paper. This is so it doesn't stick to me. That's mostly why I'm using the paper. Just because it will end up sticking to my fingers and lifting out, and that will be a pain. And after a while, once I've got it somewhat in there, then I can move the paper and use my fingers to just do it. Okay. And then I've got most of that filled in, and so then I'll just go and grab a few more pieces and just pop them into the areas where I feel like we need a little more. Okay, and now obviously it's going to have this kind of black speckled gold effect to it, and the way that we're going to get rid of that is after baking we are going to be sanding this. We can also use some isopropyl alcohol to remove a lot of the paint and such once we've demolded it. I'll show you how to do that as well. So I'm just going to continue on until I've got mostly filled, which I pretty much have. Just bring this over, and I'm just going to burnish. Get it nice and stuck in there, like so. Okay, and there we go. Now we're going to be sanding the back, so I'm not going to bother cleaning that up. I'm just going to gently pop this out of the mold. And so I'm not too worried about the fact that we've got these edges that can easily get smoothed out. What I am going to do is I'm just going to let it dry, because you can see it, some of the paint leaked out there. I might clean the mold and then I might press it in again just to make sure that we get all of those little holes, because I can see that we have a few cracks. So I cleaned the mold and now I've popped it back in, and I'm actually going to use my roller to roll this to really get that pressure in there so that it smooths down nicely, because the clay hasn't been conditioned and so it might not be as squishy as it usually is. Okay, that looks good. Okay. And then let's pull that out of the mold. And there we go, I can see the front's much better. Okay, then I'm gently going to place that down. Yeah, and then I'm going to grab a blade. And now either what you can do is you can shave your knife over the top while it's still in there, or what I prefer to do in this case is just go around with a blade. It's generally quicker and easier just to quickly trim away the excess, like so. Okay, and then I'm going to spritz this with some isopropyl alcohol, and I'm just going to take a rag or tissue, I guess, and I'm just going to wipe over the surface. I might wet the tissue as well. And there you can see that it starts to reveal the true colours. And it takes a little bit, and you want to be gentle. This is why I like to do most of it with sanding later on, but it can be helpful to do some of it before you bake it, just because it means that you don't have to do quite as much sanding and you just need to do a general cleanup afterwards. So just give it a light brush over so that you get rid of most of the paint, and then we can clean up any imperfections afterwards. Alright, there we go. So you can see generally how that's going to look now. Make sure that you get as much of the edges as you can as well, because that's going to be a difficult spot to sand, especially on the inside. Make sure that you get a decent amount in there, and then obviously the back we will sand afterwards. So now you'll just pop that onto a piece of paper, pop that into the oven for a full hour at Polymer's recommended temperature, and then we will clean up after baking. Okay, and here it is out of the oven. Now I'm just going to bring over some 400 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to work from 400 to 600 to an 800 to a 1200, but I'll start with the lowest grit. And I will just start sanding like so. You can see there, they will start to clear up. So you want to sand the front, the back of course, and of course the sides, until you have a nice cleaned up piece. And that will take a little bit of time. Adding some dish soap to the sanding water can help. It just seems to make things go quicker. But yeah, just sand it up and you'll end up with a nice result at the end. Okay, and then once it's been sanded, it should look roughly like this. And I've actually decided that I'm only going to stay on the 400 grit because I want to cover this in liquid clay. Now if you don't want to do a liquid clay varnish, you can always just use a regular varnish, or you can sand it till it's nice and shiny, but I want to coat it in liquid clay. This also adds some extra strength because it's liquid clay, and the veins although it does generally hold together quite well, you can sometimes find that these pieces break apart just because the paint and all the other inclusions that you put in that create the veins can just inhibit some of the clay bonding together properly. So I generally do like to give it a light coat of liquid clay as a finish, just so that it is stronger. So I'm just going to coat the whole piece. It's a very thin coat for the whole piece. Okay, then you can either put that into the oven for another hour, or even better is to grab a heat gun, put it on the hottest setting. I'm using an Ozito heat gun, and I've got it, gonna have it on its #1 setting, and I'll have it on its hottest setting, like this. Okay, and that is how it should look at the end of it. Let me just get rid of this liquid clay here. There we go. And now this, while it's hot, you do not want to be touching it, obviously because you can burn yourself, but also because it will take on fingerprints while it's hot like this. So the best thing to do is to just pick it up with your blade like so, put that somewhere to cool, and then clean up your tile. Okay, then once it's cooled sufficiently, I will turn it upside down, and I will also coat the back in liquid clay, cure it just the same way I did before, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, and here it is. So you can see the back here, and the front. So it's a bit warm still, but yeah, you can see how the liquid clay has made that quite nice. And something I do like about the embossing powder that you probably should keep in mind if you're going to use liquid clay as a varnish is that it will kind of create bumps under the liquid clay. So if I turn this over, not sure if you can see there, but you can see it, there are definitely bumps in the liquid clay coating there. That's because the embossing powder kind of bubbles a little bit, and that's something I like, because then it's not a smooth even finish, it still has that kind of stony effect, but if you don't like that, that is something to keep in mind. So anyway, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please do let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.